to agricultural price volatility. Volatility. Now, prices of agricultural commodities like onions, tomatoes, pulses have seen huge price fluctuations in the recent past. For example, onion price peaked in mid-October 2018 in parts of the country, bringing to fore the resurging price volatility of this vegetable, which the country witnesses every season. Now, if we look at the CPI inflation year on year, we see that there is a lot of fluctuation in the fuel prices and the food prices. The food prices is represented by the green line and the fuel prices is represented by the red line. Now, the key reasons for severe and frequent price shocks are attributed by agricultural experts to production fluctuations and changes in the nature of demand. Now, let's see food inflation. The condition of an increase in the wholesale price index of a necessary food item relative to the general index or consumer price index is referred to as food inflation. Now, food inflation in India averaged 6.0% from 2012 until 2021, reaching an all time high of 14.72% in November of 2013 and a record low of minus 2.65% in December of 2018. So if we look at the chart, we see that there has been instances of deflation between 2019-18, 19 and 18, and 2017 and 18. And apart from these, from 2012 to 2022, 2020, we have instances of food inflation. Apart from these two dips, where it denotes deflation. Now, moving on, some of the reasons for food inflation include shortage of food supply. Food supply shortages have been a result of various factors like excessive use of pesticides and fertilizers, which have led to a decline in soil fertility. Incidents of pests and diseases have increased. For example, desert locust attack wiped out crops spread over 5 lakh hectares of land in Rajasthan. As the government continuously hikes the MSP on rice and wheat, more and more farmers shift from vegetables and pulses to cereal production. This leads to a decline in the production of vegetables and pulses and pushes their prices up. There is a huge price difference between wholesale and retail prices. This is often due to poor functioning of APMC mandis, presence of intermediaries, license fee, etc. Uncertain monsoonal patterns disrupt the supply chain. Late arrival of monsoon delays the sowing period, while prolonged and heavy rain destroys the standing crops. Certain crops like pulses are protein rich and leguminous in nature, so they are more susceptible to pest attacks. Also, when they are stored in godowns, they are highly prone to fungal attacks. As a result, most of the crops are destroyed, which often leads to supply shortages. Now, poor transportation facilities also result in delay in transportation of produce from farms to the retail market. Cases of hoarding have been reported with respect to agricultural commodities, which in turn leads to artificial inflation. Global warming has led to a decline in the general productivity of agriculture. Now, high demand. As more and more Indian moves into the middle income wage bracket, the demand for high value crops like rice, wheat, sugarcane increases. On the other hand, the production is not sufficient to meet the rising demand of growing population. This also leads to food inflation. Now let's look at the cobweb cycle. Cobweb cycle refers to the fluctuations occurring in markets in which quantity supplied by producers depend on prices in the previous production period. It occurs most commonly in agriculture because the decision of what to produce in the coming year is often based on the results of the previous year. For example, if corn prices are particularly high in a given year, more farmers will choose to plant corn the next year to take advantage of the high price. This increased supply, however, will lead to lower prices. To keep a tab on food inflation, government has taken several measures, that is minimum export price. Now MEP is the price below which commodities cannot be exported from India. When there is inflation in the market, government will increase the minimum export price so as to discourage exports from India. This will lead to a higher availability of product in India and control its prices. Open Markets Sales Scheme. Now, FCI, which is a statutory body under the Commerce Ministry, sells grains in open market during food inflation to increase supply and check price rise. Price Stabilization Fund. Now, PSF was established under the Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare to regulate the cost volatility of essential agricultural commodities such as onion, potatoes, and pulses. The sum in the fund is usually used for activities aimed at bringing down up the high lows prices. Say, for example, the acquisition of certain goods and distribution of the same when appropriate, so that the cost remains within a range. Now, Operation Greens. This scheme has been launched by the Fruit Processing Ministry with NAFED as the nodal agency to stabilize the supply of tomato, onions, and potato crops and to ensure availability of top crops throughout the country round the year without volatility. Now, Ministry of Food Processing Industries extend the Operation Green schemes from TOP to all fruits and vegetables, that is total, on pilot basis as part of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Now, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund AFI is a central sector scheme and is aimed at providing medium long term debt financing facility for investment in viable projects for post harvest management, infrastructure, and community farming assets. Cold stores and chains, warehouses, silos, etc. will be set up. Features of AIF are as follows. Financial support of 1 lakh will be provided to by banks as loans to primary agricultural credit societies, that is PACS, farmers, producer organizations, and self-help groups, etc. Now, loans will have an interest subvention of 3% per annum up to a limit of 2 crore rupees. Now, a credit guarantee coverage will be available for eligible borrowers from the scheme under Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises for a loan up to 2 crore rupees. Now, Online Management Information System platform will manage and monitor the fund. The agricultural infrastructure constructed under AIF scheme will reduce post-harvest losses and minimize wastage. This will ensure the adequate supply of agricultural commodities is maintained to keep inflation under control. Now, moving on to Essential Commodities Act of 1955, the Essential Commodities Act has been used by government to regulate production, supply, and distribution of a whole host of commodities that it declares essential. Example: food grains, pulses, oilseeds, jute, fertilizer, seeds, petrol, diesel, kerosene, etc., to make them available to consumers at a fair price. This act was modified by the Essential Commodities Act of 2020 as part of the 2020 Indian Farms Reform. Now, ECA not only keeps food inflation under check but also checks negative market tendencies like black marketing and hoarding. However, Economic Survey of 2020 presented a critical evaluation of the ECA. Now, agricultural market distortions due to ECA. Now, market distortions from stock limits under ECA leads to reduced producer profit and weakens development of agricultural value chain. It inhibits development of vibrant commodity derivatives market and reduced incentive to invest in storage. This all leads to increased price volatility and reduced consumer welfare, opposite of what ECA is intended for. This is given in economic survey. Now, moving on. Observations made by Economic Survey of 2020 regarding ECA of 1955 are as follows. The Act does not distinguish between firms that genuinely need to hold stocks owing to the nature of their operations and firms that might be speculatively holding stocks. The imposition of the Act has been ineffective in controlling the price volatility as it is evident by the examples of pulses in Q3 of 2006 and Q1 of 2009, onion most recently in September 2019, where prices spiked despite the imposition of ECA. The increasing wedge between wholesale and retail prices of essential commodities further reinforce that ECA reduces the welfare of consumers. Now, in the long run, ECA disincentivizes development of storage infrastructure, thereby leading to increased volatility in price following production and consumption shocks, the opposite of what it has been intended for. The conviction rate under this act is merely 2 to 4%, indicating that raids under ECA may only be leading to harassment of traders. The survey suggests following alternatives to ECA for stabilization of prices. Strengthening of Price Stabilization Fund, which was created in 2014-15, development of an effective forecasting mechanism, stable trade policies, and increasing integration of agricultural markets. Now, moving on to food deflation. Food deflation is the opposite trend of inflation and indicates a decline in the price of food items. Reasons for food deflation in India in the recent times are as follows. Protectionist policies followed by countries like USA and European Union has led to a decline in demand for Indian agricultural products in the international market. As a result, the domestic food supply increases and leads to deflation. Events like demonetizations lead to cash shortage in hands of common person, and as a result there were plenty of goods but people did not have the money to buy, pushing the prices down. Limits on cash transactions and increased fear of being tracked by income tax authorities post demonetization disincentivized hoarding of agricultural goods by traders, resulting in more supply of such commodities in retail market. Now, RBI's hawkish monetary policy to keep inflation under control also contributed to some extent to the deflationary trends. Agricultural price volatility is a serious matter of concern for our nutritional security as well as agricultural export competitiveness. Hence, the issue must be tackled on a priority basis. That'll be it.